Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we have Barry LaBov, and I cannot wait to hear from this accidental entrepreneur, a fellow marketing professional and expert. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren. And I actually am an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't mean to do it. It happened, and it was many decades ago. So I'm really looking forward to this. I love your show, and I can't wait to have a really great conversation. I think it'll be fun.
I think so too. Okay, so Barry, you're an accidental entrepreneur. What business or businesses have you created? And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I was in a rock band way back when I had hair and everything else. So my music sold well under 1 million copies. But I was in a band. We had songs that were on the Billboard charts. We had a video that was on VH1, things like that. And I really got into music and working with creative people. And I thought it was so much fun. Just so much fun. So I worked at a recording studio, and one day, I'll try to make this brief, but one day, my wife and I were very, very poor as church mice. And I said, I think the person running the recording studio is ripping off the musicians. And I can't stand for that. Now, the backstory was the studio had lots of financial problems. I was not being paid, but I was okay with that for a while. But I did not want them to rip off my friends. So I told my wife as I was leaving in the morning, I said, look, I got to talk to the boss and make sure that he knows that I have a concern. And she said, well, what if it turns out he's doing that? And I said, well, I'll quit. But I said, he's probably dishonest. He's not going to admit it, So as I'm walking out, my landlord is walking up to my house. And I said, hi. And he just looked down and walked past me. And he was always a nice guy. And he loved my wife and me. We were like these perfect little tenants, always paying on time. I thought, well, that's weird. I go into the recording studio. I said to my boss, I said, I'm concerned that you're ripping off the musicians. And he said, I am. I'm ripping them off.
No.
I said, well, I can't work here. And he goes, well, you have to work here. I said, no, I don't. I'm not going to work for someone dishonest. And he said, Barry, you don't have enough talent. You'll starve to death without me. I said, really? I said, I'll starve to death, huh? He goes, yeah. He said, you'll die without me. You'll starve without me. And I said, I'd rather starve than work for someone who's ripping people off. So he said, well, you're not going to take my clients, are you? And I said, now, wait a minute. I said, I'm useless. I can't survive without you. And now you're worried I'm going to take your clients. I said, no, I won't. So what happened, I got to tell you, this was bizarre. So Lauren, I got in my car. This is before cell phone. So I couldn't call my wife. So I go all the way home. My wife is in the kitchen crying. And I said, oh, how are you doing, honey? Because I thought somebody must have called her to tell her I quit. And she said, oh, it's been a terrible day. And I said, okay, what happened? And she said, the landlord is getting a divorce. He walked in and told me that we have to move out in 2 weeks because his ex-wife gets our apartment.
Oh, no.
She said, honey, in 2 weeks, we'll have no place to stay. She said, how did your day go? I said, well, I quit my job. So I said, as of now, I have no job. And in 2 weeks, we have no home. That's when I went into business. That's when I started doing recording and other things, Lauren, and it eventually moved me into marketing and advertising. I did not mean to do it. I did not have grandiose vision or ambition to become a successful entrepreneur. In fact, I didn't even know what one of those was, but that moment, I became one.
Well, you saw a need in the market.
I saw a need in my wallet. I needed to find something to do.
Well, you noticed that there was probably a better way to do things and not ripping people off. And I'm assuming that legacy of integrity has followed you through to today.
Great way to put it. What happened to me there was, I remember in that moment, Lauren, saying to myself, look, if I ever run a company, I will never treat somebody like this, because I'm not bragging. I was the only source of income for that company. I was the guy doing all the writing and creating. I was their main source of money and profit. And so much so that within a month, that studio went out of business and all of their clients came to me.
So what he said was, when you'll die without me, he meant I'll die without you.
He was projecting. You're right.
Yes.
That's exactly what he was doing. But you can scare people like that, like he tried to do with me. And honestly, I thought, well, he may be right. Maybe I have no talent, but I'm not going to work with a liar. But that affected me in every way that I work with people, because, what a lousy way to deal with people. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have to realize our people really are our best and most valuable assets. And it's not just them showing up, but it's them giving their hearts and souls to what they do every day. And, treating somebody like that is just, it's not only immoral, it's stupid. You know what I'm saying?
It's not good business.
It's not really intelligent to treat someone like that.
No, I think there's certainly a subset of entrepreneurs out there, myself included, who have started companies as a direct reaction to how we were treated in our prior roles. I was laid off at 8 months pregnant from my past role and started my company. And boy, did I have a laundry list of things I was never going to do as an employer.
Well, I think that's a really good point, because we're able to reset when we start our own business, like you're saying. And it's really tough to start your own business, and you have all the pressure on your shoulders. There's no doubt. But on the other hand, you have an opportunity to create this new way of doing business that you want to do. You can create that culture, if you want to call it that. You can just basically press the reset button and say, okay, going forward, this is how I'm going to behave as a person running a company.
Absolutely. I actually had an interesting conversation with a mentor of mine recently, where I was feeling some emotions and anxiety about creating a great culture and feeling like I wanted people to be seen and known and cared for under my umbrella. And my mentor said, you've been through something. And like many people who have been through a trauma, they often overcorrect. He said, you could never think about how you were treated ever again and still never treat your team like you were treated. Like, don't worry about it. It's never going to happen. And that really gave me a lot of peace of mind that I've been through this. I've made a resolve that I'm not going to be that type of boss or employer, and I have lived to tell the tale that that is not our culture. We may have our own quirks and things, but we're not going to do that. So tell us, how did you make the leap from music to marketing, and what was the thread that took you there?
Well, that was another one of these strange happenings. I was going to say coincidence, but it's really not a coincidence. What was happening was I was working for a company. When I say working for, I was creating some music and also some audio programs, cassette tapes, although now cassette tapes are coming back. I just saw they're coming back, but I worked for...
But why?
Well, one of my clients was North American Van Lines, and they have a lot of truck drivers out on the road. So they wanted me to put together some audio tapes, some messages from their leadership to the truck drivers as they were on the road. So I did that work. And this, I have to tell you, it was strange, but the leader of that company liked me. And he was really old. He must have been in his mid-30s, late 40s, somewhere mid-30s, early 40s. I don't know what, but he was old. Okay. And I didn't really relate to him, other than I thought he was a really nice guy. And what happened after working with them for months and months and months and months and helping them on this, one day one of his people called me up and said, hey, we really like working with you. We would like to outsource all of our marketing department to you. And then your company could then do all of our marketing work for the next 3 years. So we give you a contract. So being the great entrepreneur I said, I don't think so. It doesn't fit me. I don't think so. And I said, but you know what? I'm going to give you the names of other agencies and other production companies. And he went,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So about 2 months later, the same gentleman called me up again and said, hey, I want to outsource our marketing to you. And I said, well, I'll give you some other companies. Here's some others. Well, this went on, and I'll still remember this for the rest of my life. I could never forget this. One day, the phone rings, and somebody at my company said, hey, so-and-so from North American Van Lines is on the phone. I said, oh boy, I wonder what he wants. So I get on, and he goes, Barry, I've been talking to you for a year. I want you to take this offer. I want to outsource our marketing department to you. And I said, look, I've given you the names of other companies and production teams and everything. Why do you keep asking me? And he said, because we trust you.
Mm.
And I went, ooh. I said, okay. And he said, what do you mean, okay? I said, okay, we'll do it. He said, I can outsource it to you. And I said, yes. He said, great. He said, I'll see you on Monday morning, bright and early. I said, okay. That's how it started.
Wow.
Now, for all your entrepreneurs out there, it sounds like, oh, wow, he lucked into it and it was perfect. Actually, what happened was it was a mess
Yep.
because I inherited this department of 6 individuals, none of whom wanted to work there, hated their
Mm.
jobs. A couple were strung out on drugs and never even showed up for work. A couple of them, did nothing all day. And I went, oh my gosh. And I found there was a backlog of 200 jobs that had not been finished. So I
Oof.
was getting anxiety thinking, how are we going to get all this work done? Well, Lauren, I looked into those 200 jobs. Some of them were years old. There were like
Mhm.
3 jobs that were legitimate. The rest were nothing. And I thought, oh my gosh, this department has been a disaster. So
Mhm.
after a few months, we cleaned it all up and began what was a 10-year relationship with
Wow.
North American Van Lines, and it was great. But I didn't know what I was walking into. But like an entrepreneur often will say, I didn't know what I was doing when I walked into it. I didn't know what I was in for. But you know what? It turned out better than I thought. So that happened. And Lauren, within literally 6 months, I won the Entrepreneur of the Year award that Ernst Young
Yeah.
awards. And it was because of what happened with North American Van Lines. So that's what happened. That
Wow.
turned me into a full service marketing department because there was video and there was photography
Mhm.
and there was, graphic design and copywriting. And all of a sudden, wow, I'm in the middle of it. Now here's the curveball. This is the curveball. And your show always has these interesting twists. So this is a twist. I had not thought about one thing, and that was being a music production company. My
Mhm.
clients were ad agencies. So
Oh.
I became a competitor to my clients, and every one of them, either very politely or one or two of them rudely, said, you're fired. We're not working with you again. So I
No.
lost all of my client base, but I gained this. So it was a tumultuous opportunity and time, but it turned out great.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big decision to say, I'm going to change my entire business model to service this one client who believes in me and just, build this company on a whole different other chassis.
Yeah.
And just, that's, I guess that's something that entrepreneurs do. We just take a leap. Sometimes we're like, it meets enough of my criteria that I guess I'm going to go for
Right.
it. Wow. Well, that was quite the start of our show, and we haven't even asked our first official question, which is, Barry, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
I'm very impatient, and I've learned to be a little more patient, but I am
Sure.
very, very impatient. And it starts with how I look at myself. I expect a lot out
Mhm.
of myself. And over time, I have started to be a little more of a cheerleader for myself and be a little
Mhm.
easier on me.
Well, that does come with age and wisdom. Sometimes I've noticed, we realize like what requires some patience as well as some self-love, or seeing ourselves more clearly, and appreciating ourselves for our qualities, all of them. Is there anything in particular that you're impatient about right now? I know you've written at least one book. Do you have anything else in the hopper that you're chomping at the bit about?
Oh, I have a lot of things I'm impatient about. So we have a book that's coming out June 25th. It'll be on
Oh,
Amazon.
okay. Great.
So I've had about a dozen or so books I've written, but this is the
Wow.
most serious book of any I've written. Okay. So I've never written a book at this level before. I have a podcast that within a month or two will begin. I haven't done that before. So that's pretty intense. The idea of launching a book and getting ready to promote it is something I have not done. So I'm
Mm.
looking at all those different things and I'm going, oh my gosh. And just this last weekend, I started on producing my own audio version of my book. All right.
Yes.
So for the first time, Lauren, jumped into digital recording because I use the old
Okay.
fashioned reel to reel analog is what they would
Mm.
call. I used to do that. I
Mhm.
was great at that. I avoided the digital world as far as recording goes. I don't avoid it in
Mhm.
other areas, just that area. And so I got pretty impatient with myself on that too. So I've got a raft of impatience. I mean, we could spend
Yes.
all day on that one.
Well, it keeps us young, right?
Yes.
What is the name of your book that's coming out?
The name of the book is called The Power of Differentiation. And its
Okay.
subtitle tells it all: win hearts, minds, and market share. It's all about
Mm.
winning the hearts of the people who represent your company, your brand, winning their minds, getting them to understand that, you know what, this is actually smart. It's good. We're helping people. And then once they have been won over, you can win the market share. You can win the customer because they feel it. The experience of dealing with your people and your brand is so good that, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect, but these people care. This brand actually stands for something. So that's what the book's about. It's about 200 pages. It's dozens of stories of small and large, new and old companies who have done just that. It's very
Mhm.
inspirational.
Good. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to put a link in the show notes so folks can order it. I think by the time this airs, it should be out. So,
Perfect.
and then your podcast, what will it be called?
It's called Difference Talks. It's all
Okay.
about people who have made a difference, companies that are making a difference, have explained to their employees and celebrated to their employees the difference and significance that they bring. It's all about that. So it will be beginning in the next month, maybe month or two as well.
Okay, great. Well, we'll hopefully have a link to that too. Very exciting. And then, how are you a reader and consumer of books and podcasts and things? Have any been particularly transformative for you?
Well, I've read lots of books. I've read everything from the Bible 3 times. So I've read both
Mm-hmm.
Old and New Testament 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
Well, 3 times, but I did not read them in order. I did not read the books in order. But I've read everything from Think and Grow Rich way back when to some of Harvey
Mm-hmm.
McKay's books. How to
Mm-hmm.
swim with sharks without being eaten alive. I've read books by David C. Baker on marketing and advertising. There are podcasts out there like the Two Bobs, which is the one that's
Mm-hmm.
on marketing that David and Blair do. So I listen to
Mm-hmm.
them a lot, mostly for business and information. But I also listen to podcasts on sports once in a while because I'm a Philadelphia Phillies fan. So I,
Okay.
I only after they win. When they lose, I don't want to listen to anybody talking about
Don't need to relive
it.
it. Okay, so you may, I think you've probably answered some of this, but maybe you have some other examples. What is a time in your business life where you felt like the rug totally got pulled out from underneath you and you just were not sure how you were going to survive it? But looking back now, what once you felt was the worst thing that could have happened to you, you realize is now the best thing that could have happened to you?
Yeah, I can go back to one incident where we were working with Goodyear, the tire and
Mm,
rubber company, and we were producing some programs for them. And it was a very big project for us. And we put a lot of heart and soul into it, and it was fantastic. And we were making pretty good money on it too. So we had a lot of our people focused on it. And one day, their procurement person called me up, and she was brand new there, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to now bid this out, and all of the work you've done we're now going to send to a lot of other companies and put you under competition."
mm-hmm,
And I felt, honestly, I felt a little violated. I thought, well, now wait a minute, we created this program. It wasn't something we
yeah,
took an order from. I mean, we created it. It
mm-hmm,
was filled with heart and soul. Yeah, we made money on it, sure. But it was a very inspiring program. And what happened was she put the pressure on to reduce the program itself to something that it wasn't even intended to be, something very small, very cheap, very ineffective. And within short order, we lost that project. It was done. And I thought, oh my gosh, the rug is pulled out from under me. I thought, what are we going to
mm,
do? And it forced me to regroup and look at, what do I really want to do here? What am I doing that's really good? And what am I doing that clients really love and want to pay for? And
mm-hmm.
conversely, what am I doing I'm not thrilled with? What am I doing that we're really not making much money on? What am I doing that clients kind of fight me on? And I pulled all my people into the conference room at my company, typical entrepreneur. Okay, wait a minute, we got to talk about something. Interrupted everybody's day. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, let's write down on our whiteboard here the good clients that we have. Okay. And then I said, okay, the profitable clients and the ones that love us and we love them. Okay. Well, that was one group of clients. They were all the same. The ones we made money on were the ones who loved us, with the ones we were the
Mm,
ones we love. Okay. Then there was this other group where it was frustrating. They just were never satisfied. It was
mm-hmm.
hard to make a dime. And all of a sudden I thought, now wait a minute, we have really one perfect set of clients, and then we have another set that we've been really working very hard to please, but we haven't been able to do it. And so what happened was, I identified that the clients we worked well with tended to be some of the larger companies that had dealers and distributors and all of that. It sounds a little unsexy, but it was true. And that
Yeah.
some of the companies that were very difficult were some of the very small ones that, they were nickeling and diming us. So what we did was
Mhm.
we let go of the companies that were difficult to deal with. We did it very nicely, but we found somebody else to take care of them. And we did not skip a beat. We focused on the clients who actually appreciated us.
Mhm.
That's what we did.
Yeah. Um, what a useful exercise. Yeah, I think it is really important to go through, like, even if it's not, so we don't necessarily focus on an industry or a niche or anything like that. We really do. We sat down and did saying that similarly, like, okay, what are the commonalities of the people we really enjoy and who are enjoying us, and came up with a similar solutions. Like, okay, if it's outside of that, we really need to think about if we're going to want to work with people like that.
Mhm.
So if you're listening and you haven't done that, please do. um, and then growing up, was there a personality trait that you have that people really criticized you for, like, oh, Barry, you're so emotional or competitive or ambitious or something, and then realizing now, as an adult and as a leader, that it's actually your superpower, not a weakness?
Yeah, I was criticized when I was in the rock bands by the fellow
Hmm.
musicians for being too intense and too dedicated, too determined. And
Ew.
yeah, it's like, ugh. And one thing, and I've shared this a few times, it's in my book, but what's interesting is there are two words: there's passion and there's intensity. And in
Mm,
my opinion, they're really the same.
yeah.
Intensity and passion, if you think about it, are exactly the same thing. They just depend on the moment. So as an example, you talk to somebody and say internally, we got to do better. We got to do this, blah, blah, blah. You got to do it. And they go, oh, that guy's so intense. But after you win the award or you win the client and there's a celebration, they go, oh, I love him. His passion is amazing. And it's like, now, wait a minute. You told me I was too intense, but now it's passion. And I think that intensity really it is passion. And it's two sides of the same coin. Stop being so intense, Lauren. Stop being intense. And then you win the client. And they go, oh, I love her passion. She's amazing. And it's like, so yeah. And many of my musician friends are still out there playing music. They're mostly music teachers. And we have kept in touch. And in a lot of cases, they go, I just didn't have the drive you had. I just thought it was stupid. I just thought it was ridiculous that you did. So that determination, that stick-to-itiveness, as some people call it, I had that. And I just, it's hard for me to just give up on anything, on anybody, on any situation. I just hate to give up.
I can see how, if you're just like, hey man, I'm just here for the music and the vibes.
Right.
You're like, no, we're going to monetize this baby.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you said it, like they're still making art or in that space, but maybe necessarily haven't moved forward. And that passion and drive is what gets something to move forward if that's what you want. I would rather have a determined person on my team for sure. One of my mentors always used to say, it's easier to tame a wild stallion than to breathe life into a corpse. And I think that's good advice.
Breathe life into a corpse. That's great.
Yeah. It's like, I'd rather hold you back a little bit than have to shove you along.
Well, one thing, Lauren, I'm going to interrupt you here. I want to compliment you. One thing about you that I think is great is you talk about your mentors, okay? And that is wonderful. You show honor to them, but a lot of it's about you because you want to learn. You do. You want to grow. And those mentors are more than happy to help you because you are there. You're a sponge. You're soaking it in. You're loving it. And in many cases, those mentors are not asked by many people for help. So I think that's smart of you.
Well, thank you. I'm lucky to have had some really wonderful ones in the past and then current, and I do not take those relationships lightly. I get asked now to speak to the next generation from time to time, and I always say yes, if I can, just because that's my duty. I feel like many people answered the call for me, and so it's my responsibility to hang the lantern for those behind me.
Well, I think that's great. Real quick story. When I started my business, you ask how all of a sudden it happened. I did not want to start it. I did not want to run it. And I definitely did not want to sell. I hated to sell. And so what happened was I was realizing that I did not know how to sell. So I kept walking around and talking to people. I go, who's the best salesperson in the area? And they would say, oh, Mike. There's this guy named Mike. You got to go to Mike. I said, okay. And they go, but Mike's really busy. And he's a very successful salesperson over at the TV station. He has no time. I said, okay. I said, can you give me his phone number? So I got his phone number. It was like 10:30 in the morning. I dialed it. He picks the phone up. He goes, Mike. I go, hey, Mike, you don't know me. I'm Barry, blah, blah, blah. I know so-and-so. He goes, yeah. What do you want? And I said, I'm a lousy salesperson. I hear you're the best salesperson around. I'd love to learn anything I can from you. And if you would allow me to take you to lunch, I would love it if you could just tell me when you would have time. And he said, what are you doing in an hour? I said, well, I'm free. He said, okay, meet me at this such and such restaurant. Let's go. And I said, Mike, why are you doing this so quickly? He said, Barry, you got to understand, hardly anybody asks me for my opinion. And if you're willing to listen, I am ready to give you everything I got.
Wow. That's awesome. And I'm so curious, I feel like I could keep you here for a day, but, as you started your journey, were you just like, did a lot of it come naturally to you? Or were you just trying and iterating and, messing up and figuring it out? I mean, was it just like hacking through weeds, or was it smooth sailing? Like, what did that look like for you?
It was not smooth. I worked and worked and worked, and I had a weird schedule. I might work till 3 or 4 in the morning on something, and then I would sleep and wake up in the morning. I would feel like I had no momentum and I had to go, 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 go. So fortunately, I have a wife who back then supported me and put up with my intensity and my frustrations and still loved me. And to this day, we're still together. We just had our
Oh,
anniversary yesterday. We were married in 1978. As I tell everybody, 22 years of happy marriage. Now, anybody that does the math knows that I'm joking there, um, but my wife was there and she accepted me for being frustrated because she knew I was determined and focused and meant
mm-hmm.
to do the right things. But it wasn't easy. A lot of times, for me anyway, being an entrepreneur is I'm doing things that I'm not sure have been
Mm-hmm.
done that many times. There are certain things that are like, oh, everybody does that. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to tackle things and I'm trying to do things that a lot of times just are not that common.
Mm-hmm.
And it was rough. So it was hacking through weeds. I resent any entrepreneur who tells me, oh, it was easy and this was great and everybody was wonderful. And I'm going, either I'm very jealous of you or I
Yeah.
think you're full of crap because that's just not
Yeah.
probable. It's tough
Mm-hmm.
to be an entrepreneur and it's lonely. A lot of times I think being an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur is lonely because um, a lot of times you're the only person who cares that much. You're the only person working on this problem at this time of day or night. You're the only person who is really frustrated or feels embarrassed if you fell short. It's not easy. I
Mm-hmm.
feel alone a lot.
Well, that's one
I
of the
really do.
reasons I started this show, because it is such a lonely journey. And if we can feel like we're part of some asynchronous community together as we hear from our fellow entrepreneurs, we do feel a little less lonely, like, oh, well, man, that sounds a little bit like what I've gone through that Barry's sharing. And, if it's like, when you are have very young children and you're awake with them in the middle of the night, it's like feeling like you're not the only one awake at that time, that there are other parents or the bakers are up baking bread or something like that. Like I'm just a little less alone as I trudge down this dark path. um, as you look back at your career and ahead to what you're working on now, what's one piece of advice you can give our listeners that they can make their lives and businesses stronger and better?
One bit of business as I look back is there have been times where I allowed others to take control of where my
Mm,
company was going in certain areas or certain relationships where I was focusing on, let's say, trying to grow the company and they took over either a creative area or a relationship area. And I kind of ceded control. I
mm,
backed away. And in those
mm,
cases, it
mhm,
hurt. It hurt us. And I think in retrospect, what I should have done and what I do today is I needed to be more firm but less emotional so that I could require us to perform at a level or standard that I thought was
mm,
what we needed to do. And instead, I think I got more emotional where either I would, lose my cool or get impatient, or I would just vacate. I'd leave that and work on something else. When I did that, what I did is I really gave up control of the end product or the end relationship. And my point is today, I don't want to give that up. And if somebody thinks I'm being a little bit picky or a little bit intense on something, I try to do it as nicely as I can. But as I tell my wife like 10 times a week, honey, I am more firm than I've ever been in my life, but I am less
mhm.
emotional about it than I've ever been in my
Well, I
life.
would say, that creates clarity, and people can respond better when it's a clear picture. Tell us, what does the business look like today? I mean, you have, I know, multiple offices. So like how many people do you have on your team? What does that look like?
We have 30 people on the team. I have 15 to 20 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I have 2 at our office in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we're growing that office. We have then another half dozen to a dozen, actually closer to a dozen now, in Indianapolis at our digital office. So we have those 3 different locations today. So we do that. We work mostly national, but somewhat internationally. So our clients include Volkswagen, Audi, Macallan Scotch in Scotland, Harley Davidson, Carrier Heating and Air Conditioning. I mean, wide range, plus many smaller companies, some family manufacturing businesses. We've worked with ambulance companies, bakeries, fire hose nozzle manufacturers. So we've done a lot of that kind of work. And we're currently working with a AAA Major League Baseball team. So very wide range of interesting clients.
And how has your role evolved over time? Because, I would have assumed you would be more hands-off, but it sounds like you're still pretty hands-on right now.
I'm the strategy person. So for me, I have to be involved to make sure that the vision and strategy of what our clients need is really being realized. When it comes into a lot of the execution areas, I'm very hands off, where as long as we know what our goal is and our strategy is, I'm great. I don't want to go in. I'm not moving somebody's logo around by a quarter of an inch and changing the colors. I'm not going to do that to somebody, because I'd hate that being done to me. But I do believe that the messaging is very critical. I'm a writer, so I think that it's very important to be very, very, very particular in the words you use. As the saying goes, words create worlds. So we too quickly use the same cliches, and I'm very anti-cliche. And my point is, there are 200,000 words in the English language. Let's pick a good one instead of the first one that, pops out of our head. I'm constantly looking for magic or inspiration in everything we do. Everything, which again can drive people crazy, but it's also what a lot of clients love. It's they love that. They want inspiration, and that's what I look for, and we do find it. What
does exit look like for you? Do you think about that? Are you willing to share?
Oh yeah, we have a plan right here. I have 2 young people who are tremendous individuals who have bought into the company, and in a 5-year period of time, they will end up being the majority owners. And when they are, they'll have the option of retaining me or not. And then I look at it, it's going to be 3 years from now, and I'm great about that, because honestly, if at that point they go, we're great, thanks a lot, you've done great, thank you, then that's kind of cool, because then I'll be working on something else. But I'm not a retirement guy. I'm also not a guy that doesn't like to have fun and doesn't like to play golf and doesn't. No, I love all that, but I don't think my purpose in life is hanging around the golf club and drinking in the afternoon and smoking cigars. I think there's something a little more important that will keep me alive and vibrant. So that's my future.
What do you feel like you were put here to do?
I think I was put here to find the magic in people, to find what makes people or brands unique. And I see those things in people. I'll see them in employees. I'll see what somebody is capable of. And honestly, Lauren, some of them that I said, you could do blank, blank, or blank, some of them have become leaders in my company and moved way up, and it's great. Some of them have said, I don't want to do that. I go, yeah, but you'd be great at this. And I don't want to do it. And you know what? I have accepted that and said, okay. So many of those individuals are still here, and they're doing primarily what they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's great. They're wonderful. I love them. So I believe it's up to me to find that magic, the uniqueness that is inside a person or inside a brand, and then celebrate it. Put it to work, make it help other people.
Okay. So wrapping up, where can people find you and connect with you and we'll put some links for your book and everything, but all the other good places.
Well, my goal is to influence and inspire over 1 million people with my message. And that's from the book, but it's also shown on my website, which is barrylabov.com or labov.com. And you can go there. You can reach out to me. I have lots of people that will reach out and say, hey, let's talk about blah, blah, blah. And it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. I have some free downloads for anybody that listens to me or sees me on podcasts. That's where they can go in the very near future, not only on Amazon for the book, which is The Power of Differentiation, but also soon on Apple and Spotify will be Difference Talks. And those will be inspiring interviews of individuals in all walks of life that have made a difference and are helping people feel significant.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you for bringing magic to the world and finding magic in all of us.
Lauren, you are a gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to the impatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.